Jim here again, and in this week's MMA fight prediction video, I'm going to be covering the UFC 181's main event that features a middleweight title matchup that's long overdue. When the current reigning and defending UFC Middleweight Champion, the All-American Chris Weidman, locks horns with the former UFC Heavyweight Tournament champ, as well as former UFC Lightheavyweight Champion, the Phenom, Vitor Belfort, in a fight that ain't going to the judges. I will give you guys a backstory to this fight, as well as a full fight breakdown of the two fighters and who I've ultimately winning and walking away as the UFC Middleweight Champion when this fight comes to a close. By the way, stay tuned to the end of the video because I have a special announcement to make about the future in regards to my MMA fight prediction programming. Now, without further ado, let's get this thing started right about now. Weidman, Belfort. Finally, here we go. Now, Chris Weidman and Vitor Belfort were supposed to meet for the UFC Middleweight Championship at UFC 173 after Chris defeated Henderson Silva twice. First time via KO to claim the title, second time by TKO injury after jacking his leg up with a destruction by putting knee to shin to retain. And when Vitor Belfort subsequently ran the gauntlet with 3 memorable knockouts in 2013, starting it off first by knocking out top contender Michael Bisping in the second round of their fight, destroying any hopes of Bisping ever becoming a world champion for the foreseeable future via head kick, as well as spinning wheel kick knockout over former Strikeforce middleweight champion Luke Rockhold in the very first round. And he followed that up with one hell of a coup de grace by becoming the very first man in mixed martial arts history to ever knock out Dan Henderson by finishing Hendo with another head kick, KO, and down goes Hendo in their rematch. All things considered, everything was set to go for Weidman and Belfort to finally collide at UFC 173. That is until TRT was no longer valid in Nevada, in which case, as a result, Vitor was pulled from the card and replaced with Lyoto Machida, the former UFC Lightheavyweight Champion, who I felt was arguably the toughest challenge for Chris Weidman and a much better opponent for him to really solidify his standings as champion and get the respect he deserved the victory. More so than I felt if he beat Vitor. However, the fight did not commence at UFC 173 as scheduled because Chris got injured and the fight was moved to the July 5th card in Vegas at UFC 170. When the fight got underway, first round, Chris was controlling the center of the octagon and keeping Lyoto back with kicks. Second round, more of the same. He's putting the pressure on him, cutting the ring off, took him down late in the round, and scores some good ground and pound. Nonetheless, in the third round, he managed to take him down 3 successful times. In addition to that, loading Lyoto up. Although in the fourth round, Lyoto would come back strong, baby, take more command of the fight because Weidman started slowing down and his strikes were finding their mark, especially when he was lighting up Chris's ribs with those body kicks. And overall, the fourth definitely belonged to Machida. In the 5th round, the very close, very tricky round to score, since Machida was getting the better of the exchanges again early, up until Weidman turned it around, cut Machida again, then proceeded to take him down for the 5th time, which led to Weidman controlling Machida and pressuring him for over a minute until they were back up on their feet. Lyoto backed him up, went at him hard, hitting him with everything but the kitchen sink to try to finish him. I'm talking punches, elbows, knees, whatever. But it just was too little, too late, and when the fight was over, the writing was on the wall. It was scored unanimously in Weidman's favor, so he picked up the unanimous decision without question to remain the UFC Middleweight Champion. That victory, he showed the world that he is the real deal, because not only did he show that he could dominate an elite world champion like Lyoto Machida, but also that he could come back from adversity when he's really put under the heat and the fire and still persevere and walk out victorious. Now with that win, Chris is now set up to finally fight Vitor at UFC 181 this December in the main event for the Middleweight Championship. Thanks to Vitor finally getting licensed to fight in Nevada. I mean, he's now TRT free and all natural. Aside from that, he looks smaller. We'll see how much this affects him in the fight, more or less. The question is, heading into this fight, will Chris Weidman go in there, dominate another legend, retain his championship, and put this old lion out of his misery to remain the leader of the pack at middleweight? Or is the Phenom going to make the most of probably his last title shot in the UFC by being the first man ever to defeat Chris Weidman and claim the coveted middleweight championship with another spectacular head kick KO? The answer to that question will be coming up next. I'm breaking down the champion and the challenger in this fight. Chris Weidman definitely takes the height at 2 inches because he's 6'2", Vitor 6 foot. The reach also goes to the champion. He has a 78-inch reach. Vitor's a 74-inch reach, so there's 4 inches difference there. When it comes to cardio, Vitor's good the first 2 rounds. However, once it hits the 3rd, the 4th, he's pretty much run out of gas. And he's not that big of a threat. In contrast, Chris Weidman is solid round 1, round 2, round 3. And in his last fight, yeah, he got a little bit tired in the 4th, but he was able to pick it back up in the 5th. So his cardio is definitely much better than Vitor's. The longer the fight goes, the more the fight is into Chris's favor. Now moving on to the skills. When it comes to stand-up fighting, Vitor Belfort has more finishes than Chris Weidman via knockout by 17 to Chris's 5. In addition to that, faster than Chris, he's got that wicked hand speed. He's a counter striker. And once Vitor sees an opening to which you leave yourself exposed, he's going to go in, he's going to explode with that crazy blitz and hit you with a barrage of strikes, and it's game, set, and match just like that. However, as of late, instead of using his hand techniques to get finishes, he's mostly been relying on high kicks, as seen in his work against Michael Bisping and Dan Henderson when he floored them with the straight standard head kick or the ultra impressive spinning wheel kick that devastated Rockhold in style. Nevertheless, Chris Weidman has faced much better strikers than Vitor Belfort in Anderson Silva and Lyoto Machida. Additionally, although Chris Weidman doesn't have the speed of Vitor Belfort. He does have great awareness, great reaction time, and a solid chin. In addition to that, he knows how to slow the fight down and put pressure on fighters and make him fight his fight with Machida. Chris was able to cut the ring off and slow Lyoto down with pressure, as well as kicks to the legs and to the body. Additionally, he was able to do what Vitor could never do, knock out Anderson Silva. Besides that, counter Silva a second before he was getting ready to throw the knee at him. He clocked him. Plus, Chris can block Vitor's kicks, whether he's going high for a high kick or, you know, he decides to get ballsy and goes for the straight leg kicks with a destruction by putting knee to shin and fucking up his leg just like he did Anderson. And along with the threat of the wrestling and constant pressure, he can screw up Vitor's rhythm. Above all, it doesn't really matter that Vitor's faster than Weidman, since despite his experience, abilities, and skill set, he doesn't present the same level of threat that Chris has been accustomed to on the feet in his past couple of fights against Silva and Machida. As long as Weidman can have him backing up, second-guessing himself, and see his attacks coming, negate them in kind, and deal out double the damage, outland him, and or aim a perfectly timed shot, like say a left hook, or that elbow coming in like he did against Mark Munoz, he will dominate on the feet or knock Vitor out. And I know I'm going to get some heat for this, but I'm giving Weidman the stand-up advantage right here. As far as the wrestling is concerned, Chris Weidman is an NCAA Division I wrestler. He takes everybody down, and Vitor Belfort doesn't have the takedown defense to stop Chris from taking him down wherever the hell he wants to. So, wrestling advantage, Weidman all day long. That's all there is to it. Switching gears to the jiu-jitsu aspect of this fight. Both guys are high-level BJJ practitioners. Vitor Belfort is a black belt. Chris Weidman is a brown belt. Both guys have 3 submission victories to their credit. But the difference is Vitor has been submitted by white belts in his career at the hands of Alistair Overeem by guillotine choke and Johnny Bones Jones by that Americana. Whereas Chris Weidman has never been submitted in his entire mixed martial arts career. And don't get me wrong, Vitor is good on the ground. I mean, after all, he was able to choke out Anthony Johnson along with surprise John Jones with that armbar. That being said, Chris Weidman has the kind of wrestling and jiu-jitsu blend to shut him down, nullify his game, pass his guard, and submit his ass. Aside from all that, in the end, when this fight finally commences at UFC 181, we all know what Vitor Belfort's game plan is. To defend the takedowns, and if he gets taken down, threaten him with submission attempts, and if you can't get anything going, get back up to your feet. Look for opportunities to counter and get off first, and batter Weidman to the body, and punish him. You know, timing it right, catch him off guard, and catch him with another spectacular head kick KO within the first 2 rounds. But ultimately, Vitor's dreams of becoming champion are slim to none. And slim people just left the damn building. Since Chris Weidman is going to go in there, he's going to put pressure on Vitor, cut the ring off, look to start Vitor striking with his grappling skills, slow him down with some inside leg kicks, push him against the cage, in the clinch, knee his legs, foot stomp him, get some dirty boxing in there, change levels, take him down, control the positioning, beat him up in his guard, pass the guard, flatten him out, sink in that rear naked choke, and submit him. Or otherwise, lock in a crucifix and pound his face in and wear on him until he knocks his ass out in either the 2nd or 3rd round. To be honest, Chris Weidman simply put, is basically his worst nightmare. He doesn't do well against wrestlers, especially wrestlers with good submission, solid chin, and heavy hands. That's his kryptonite. My official prediction for this fight, Chris Weidman takes the victory over Vitor via TKO or via submission. In his third successful title defense, this fight ain't going to the judges. And at the end of the day, it wouldn't have mattered even if TRT Vitor showed up against Chris, Super Saiyan Vitor powered up against Chris, or even Indestructible Hulk Vitor. The result would be the same regardless. Up next for Chris Weidman is a title fight against the new #1 contender in the former Strikeforce Middleweight Champion, Rolando Jacare Souza, the man who just defeated Gegard Mousasi tonight via guillotine choke, and victor of 7 straight fights, who should provide the toughest test on the ground for the champion to date. As far as Vitor is concerned, I think he's going to take some time to reflect after this loss to Chris Weidman before he gets back in the cage. Nevertheless, I sincerely doubt that Vitor will ever become the world champion again at either 185 or 205. Unless it's in World Series of Fighting, ONE FC, or Bellator. Since their talent pool isn't that deep as the UFC, and it would be rather simple for Vitor to come over there and kick their world champion's ass and hold their world titles. But in the UFC, there's still some interesting matchups for him that I think we'd all love to see before he hangs it up. Like, say, Lyoto Machida, a rematch with Wanderlei Silva, or if Nick Diaz wants to stay at 185, I'd love to see him kick his ass. Now, moving on to my announcement. After this video and the subsequent UFC 182 and 183's main event videos are uploaded to my channel, I will not be producing any more fight prediction videos until next year in either late summer or early fall. But don't worry, guys, I'm not going anywhere, and I will still be putting up some pretty damn good content of other genres that I've been wanting to do for such a very long time. When I do finally come back to uploading MMA fight prediction videos, they will be bigger, better, and cooler and more insightful than they were before. Now, this will do it for this fight prediction video. I will see you guys next week for the UFC 182's main event fight prediction. Jon Jones versus Daniel Cormier. Same time, same channel. Jim, signing off.